This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening. This is the informational meeting for construction projects around Route 150 and 495 and South Hunt Road. We are here to just give you an open forum for any questions and an update on all the projects in the area. Tonight we have with us Angela Cleveland, who's the project manager, Caitlin Thayer, the communications director, Nipun Jain, the planning director, and from TEC, we have Liz Ottman and Lori Aho. So the plan for tonight is to go over all the construction projects, the development activities, and then answer any questions you may have. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Liz.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on how we got to where we are now. About 2 years ago, the city saw some existing growth happening with the approval of Village at Bailey's Pond and the Hatters Point development being approved. And they were seeing some new growth in the area, including Maples Crossing coming into the planning board, and which was at that time called the Atlantic Sports Center. And so the city saw this growth happening in the South Hunt Road area. And rather than have each developer make small improvements to the roadway system until everything was kind of a mess, the city took it upon themselves to envision overall roadway infrastructure to handle the traffic from all of the various developments and really have a vision for the future. So that was TEC's first task, was to do the planning and figure out how much traffic was going to be generated by all of these developments, both those that were already planned and some that were not yet actually planned, but proposed for the future. So that was the first task. And you can see on the side that the projects that were included were not only Hatters Point and Village at Bailey's Pond and Maples Crossing, but also the redevelopment of what's called the Trader Allen piece, with a potential for a retail development or a convenience store. And then also included was Margaret Rice, which is this parcel next to Maples Crossing, projected with a possible office park. It also included the redevelopment of what was called the New England Sports Park, the Tubing Hill, and then several other small parcels along South Hunt Road. So the city partnering with the developers and having this vision enabled them to acquire 2 grants from the state, 2 MassWorks grants, one for the interchange of I-95 with Route 150, and then the second one was for along South Hunt Road. And really the benefits of these projects and the vision that the city had was safety improvements for the vehicles traveling between South Hunt Road and 495. Right now, it's very difficult to get from 495 northbound, that ramp, into South Hunt Road without stopping in the ramp and making a left turn. So really, it was a safety improvement primarily. Increased capacity at the intersection to make more efficient operations. More efficient operations means that people won't use local streets as much because they can get through on the fastest way, the most direct way possible. And also to have bicycle and pedestrians accommodations on Route 150. The South Hunt Road MassWorks grant included primarily bicycle and pedestrian accommodations, safety improvements for turning vehicles into the Maples Crossing development, and really just attractive corridor enhancements for visitors, employees, potential developers, potential employers, just to make this a very attractive place to be in the city of Amesbury. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Lori, who is the project designer. to go through the individual improvements.
Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so again, thank you everybody. My name is Lori Aho, and as Liz mentioned, I am the project manager and highway designer for both the MassWorks 1 project, which is the widening of 150 South Hunt Road and the off 495 ramps, as well as the South Hunt Road corridor. I'm going to start off talking a little bit about the 150 project. So again, it's a widening of Route 150 from approximately just north of the I-495 southbound ramps over to about just to the south of the I-495 northbound ramps. And part of that widening includes installing an exclusive left turn lane onto the I-495 southbound ramps, realigning I-150 at the northbound ramps to include an exclusive left turn lane onto the ramps, an exclusive right turn lane onto South Hunt Road, and realigning the 495 ramps to align better with South Hunt Road, as Liz mentioned earlier. We are also proposing a 5-foot bike lane running along the northbound side or westerly side of 150, and a 10-foot shared use path for both bicyclists and pedestrians that will run along the easterly side of 150. We are proposing a new traffic signal both at the South Hunt Road 150 and the I-495 northbound ramps, as well as a new traffic signal at the I-495 southbound ramps and 150. We are also proposing pavement restoration when done of the entire roadway, and we're constructing a new detention basin where the old ramps were to help treat some of the water that will eventually ends up going to Bailey's Pond. And this is just a blow up of the intersection of South Hunt Road with the ramps in 150, just to give you a better idea of what is going on at this intersection. So widening the intersection, realigning the ramps, creating a shared use path, brand new traffic signal, and storm treatment. Now I'm going to talk to you briefly about the improvements along South Hunt Road. So it's going to pick up where the I-495 MassWorks 1 project ends. This is the MassWorks 2 project, as Liz mentioned earlier. And we're going to be widening South Hunt Road to provide one travel lane in each direction, a 5-foot bike lane on each side of South Hunt Road, as well as a 5-foot sidewalk along the entire length of the southerly side of South Hunt Road. And let's go on here. So we're also going to be constructing a new left turn lane into the Maple Crossings site as well. And as part of this project, the city is going to install new water and sewer as needed along the entire corridor. I just want to talk briefly to you about the project schedules. So as far as the 150 and 495 interchange, Mass DOT has already approved and permitted that design. The contractor has already gone out to bid and the contractor selection has been completed. The projected construction is to begin in July of 2020. So for South Hunt Road, we're currently designing at the 50% design stage. We are going to bid the project in the fall of 2020. We will begin construction late fall of 2020. And now I would like to turn the presentation back over to Rob.
All right, and now Nipun will discuss the planning options as the developments as we go forward.
So, as Liz mentioned, the genesis of these traffic improvements included some of the prior growth that had taken place, namely on the west end with the hat factory redevelopment and the village at Bailey's Pond. But as we got closer to more development starting to take place at this area or in this area, we had, through the planning board process, looked at a comprehensive improvement to the traffic corridor. So one of the projects that has been of a lot of interest to people as it is still under construction has been the village of Bailey's Pond at Summit Avenue and Route 150. People who are familiar with it would know that there are two parts to this project. Phase 1, which comprises of 76 units. This phase is primarily along Route 150 and also has an access from Beacon Street. The second phase, which comprises of 24 units, is from Summit Avenue, and that's the only access point. Currently, only phase 1 is under construction. Phase 2 will not start until phase 1 is fully complete. And under phase 1, site grading and access to phase 1 has been completed. The basic drainage, water, and sewer infrastructure has been installed, and the developer is looking to start construction of buildings this summer. This is the overall plan for the Bailey's Pond development. This is phase 1. This is Route 150, and this is phase 2. In the first part of phase 1, 15 buildings are proposed to be constructed, and that will start, as I said, in July 2020, give or take. We don't know exactly, but that is the approximate time that the developer anticipates building this. So these 15 residential buildings will probably take about a year or a year and a half to finish construction, and then they will move the remaining buildings in this phase. The next big project in this area is, as everybody knows, Maples Crossing, which was originally known as the Atlantic Sports Center. This is on 24 South Hunt Road. This project has been approved, and the groundbreaking took place last year in October 2019. The developer is currently working on the contractor selection because it's a big project, a lot of moving parts, and they have to prepare construction documents. And once that is completed, they will actively start construction on or about August, September 2020. So those are some of the key construction projects that will, or development projects that will also be taking place around the time this roadway improvement project is being built. And our goal today was to give you a highlight of what are some of the major projects along this corridor that will be also taking place. Thank you.
So now we'll open the forum up to any questions. Caitlin will direct any questions to us if they come through Facebook. If there's anybody on the GoToMeeting, they can unmute themselves and speak directly.
We don't currently have any questions on Facebook, so certainly if anybody who has joined us here has a question, you're welcome to ask it.
Hey, Caitlin, can I answer a question?
Of course, go ahead, Nick.
So I actually came in a few minutes late. I don't know if you guys touched on this already. Do we have an anticipated, basic start date for the Atlantic Center? Are they still working through the remainder of their permits, or are they good to go now?
Nick, this is Nipun. As I said in my presentation, what we know from the developer is that they are still working on selecting the contractor and preparing construction documents. And they have indicated that they expect to start active constructing on the site around August, September of this year.
Gotcha. Yeah, I might have missed that just because I came in late, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Nipun.
You're welcome.
Caitlin?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I was just, I saw the start construction date for the initial phase of the road work, the traffic lights with the I-495 interchanges. Is there a completion date for that project?
Hi, it's Lori. Yeah, the intention is to have everything completed, wrapped up next year.
Okay, and that's before the Hunt Road starts, the Hunt Road project?
There will be some overlap between both projects.
Okay, thank you.
We do have a question from Facebook from Steve Stanganelli. What is the capacity rating for these improvements given the potential for some type of development at the former Margaret Rice Park or the Trader Allen site?
Those projects were both considered when we did the planning for and project development for the these two projects. So the intersections are going to be operating at good levels of service, Cs and average Cs, Ds, what you would, nothing, no long queues, no excessive delays anywhere. That's with the sports park in full operation, or Maples Crossing in full operation. The Margaret Rice having a fairly large office complex on it. So we really tried to be very conservative in the traffic numbers. So we would make sure that we had the capacity to serve all of South Hunt Road area.
Just add to what Liz said, Steve, we had to do a MEPA analysis for this project. And as part of the MEPA process, the designers have to take into account growth in the recent 5 years as well as what is anticipated through a master planning process. So that's what we included, the Maples Crossing, the sports park redevelopment with other buildings on it, not just the tubing place. We have looked at some other entertainment facilities on that site. And as mentioned, also the redevelopment of the Margaret Rice for an office building. So we did add a lot of capacity. I think we also included, and it was mentioned, the Trader Allen truck stop area. So a lot of capacity was looked at and has been designed into this project. In fact, part of the reason why we were able to apply for the MassWorks 2 is because of that reason, because we saw that there would be additional improvements needed with the further redevelopment of parcels along that corridor.
Right, so we have approvals from both MassDOT and MEPA, which is the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency office, and FHWA for the connection to 495. Lots of reviews.
We have another question, which I was just actually going to follow up and ask if you could talk about this a little bit more. The question from Matt Einson is, for phase one, how long will the entrance or exit ramps to 495 be closed? If you could maybe just talk a little bit about the impacts to residents and commuters who use this area, what that will look like during construction.
Yes, hi, it's Lori. It's really tough for me to put that in words. I mean, that's really kind of a means and methods for the contractor, but we did come up with some construction staging for the contractor to follow. For the most part, the ramps will stay open and they'll build them so that they are going to widen, so that they'll relocate the ramp and widen it to the side where there is no ramp while maintaining the existing ramp that's out there today, and then slowly shift over and move traffic to the new ramp while they dismantle the old ramp. That's what we suggested that the contractor does, but again, that's a means and methods type of thing. We can't exactly tell the contractor what he needs to do, but he should be meeting with the city regularly to review the traffic management with the city and make sure they're on board with what they plan on doing.
All right, a couple more questions coming in. How will the, from Kathy Kojic, how will the area handle all the construction vehicles for 3 projects happening simultaneously? The neighborhood has already been significantly impacted by the village of Bailey's Pond.
That's a good question. Again, it's just it's a coordination between all the contractors. You know, TEC is going to have a resident engineer on site to help coordinate the construction between the different contracts. And, you know, construction is an impact to people, unfortunately, but they're going to do their best to make sure that we keep those impacts at a minimum.
Thank you. And certainly, as Angie just reminded me, that similar to the Elm Street reconstruction project that is happening now, we have a project page there where we give updates on, you know, what's happening, where we are, what phases are being worked on. We'll have something similar for this as well, where we talk about what where we are in the phases, what's going on, any impacts to the community, that sort of thing. We do have another question from Steve Stanganelli. This area is all part of the South Hunt Area District Improvement Financing Project approved by the council, correct? And what are the signage improvements for the area to help keep traffic out of the Main Street riverfront area?
This is Robert Damaris. It is all part of the DIF. A large portion of the project is funded by 2 MassWorks grants. The remainder is funded by a DIF through the city. The Main Street River Pleasant Valley Road is not part of this project. That is something we're pursuing independently of this project, but as a result of this project as well.
I think the worry is that with this going on, there may be more traffic on those roads down there.
They may, yes.
Yeah. But the idea of the interchange improvements is to provide as much capacity and efficiency as possible, so people will find it easier to use 495 and the South Hunt Road intersection rather than wind through the local roads. People who are coming from out of town. Local people who know the roads will likely use the roads, but the idea is to keep the people from out of town off the roads, off the local roads.
Those are all the questions we have on Facebook at the moment. I don't know if anybody else who has dialed in has a question. All right, another comment on Facebook from Tracy Chaliflor. 2 questions. Can you speak more about the 5-foot bike path and also the other shared use path? They're not the same thing, correct? And then second, it's her understanding that the standard for paths is wider than 5 feet.
Okay, so I can speak to that. You're correct. There's a 5-foot bike lane, so to speak, on both South Hunt as well on one side of 150. And that is a bike lane that's going to be in the travel way. But the shared use path is actually going to be along the east side of 150, and that's actually going to be 10 feet wide. So you're correct in saying that 5 feet wide is not wide enough for shared use path. That shared use path will be 10 feet wide. and that will run the length of 150 within the project limits.
All right, again, no more comments on Facebook for right now.
Can I ask another question, Caitlin?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I know when this was before the city council the last time, I had asked about potential for like street lights along that section of 150, like between 110 and the highway in particular. I know street lighting is not part of this project. That's my understanding, but I think maybe Rob had spoken to it and said this is something that maybe the city could pursue, like on its own, like alternatively. Do we have any idea what it would cost to add street lighting to that section? Because it's pretty dark, and it's also kind of a gateway to the city. A lot of people get off exit 54, and that's how they come into town. Is this something the city's looked into, or would consider adding in the future as part of this? Not as part of this, but to augment this work that we're doing.
Yeah, Nick, I looked into it briefly several months ago. There's no poles there, so the poles would have to be added. And the cost is roughly $20,000 to $25,000 per light. So we're looking at like $200,000, I'm guessing. That doesn't count the electrical connection and so forth. And these are back of the envelope numbers, but if we were to pursue funding for that in the future, we could. If we had funding for that, we could certainly implement.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
We have a couple of follow-up questions about the path, the bike path and shared use path. Where will the paths connect to, or is there a terminus? Is the bike path the length of 150 from 110 to Beacon? I'll let you answer those and then I'll ask the other question.
So yes, so the bike path that we're putting in is only for the length of the project. So it doesn't go all the way from 110 to Beacon Street. The intent is, I can let Rob speak to this, that eventually we'll have those connections made. But for now, it's only for the length of the project. So it'll start just to the north of the ramps and it will end just to the south of the southbound ramps, right about where Summit Ave is today. So.
And not to put you on the spot, Liz, but it's my understanding that phase 3 of the MEPA permit requires that any additional development develop those two missing legs of Route 150, which would include the shared use path.
Correct. Right. That's exactly the next development that comes in the South Hunt area. Additional pedestrian and bicycle facilities would be added to up to 110 and down to Beacon Street.
Thank you.
And then the other question goes back to the traffic and worries. So Clark's Road and Rocky Hill between 110 and Main Street are already overused. So is there going to be diverted traffic, and what will be done about that diverted traffic?
During construction, there may be some diverted traffic. As I said, the design of the project is to accommodate all the traffic that's to be generated by these developments efficiently. So once construction is over, the people will reroute to 495 because it's just quicker and easier than the back roads.
And during construction, I guess, Rob, are we worried about extra traffic in this area if traffic is being diverted away from construction?
Look, again, either of you correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were to when those ramps are closed, if you were to detour someone, you'd likely detour them down to Merrimack, correct? The Broad Street exit's the only full interchange we have on 495. So
yeah, I mean that's correct, but You know, we can't say that people aren't going to find, you know, especially local traffic. They know the area. They will divert to the roads that they feel they need to divert to. But the intent is certainly not to send people down small local roads. We would send them to the major interchanges.
All right, so we can give people another minute to add questions if they have it on Facebook. And I'm not seeing, oh, there it is. Another question from Steve Stanganelli. Are there any plans to somehow update information used by GPS apps to keep commercial trucks out of Beacon Street or Main Street areas?
I don't believe that, and Rob, maybe you've heard something different, but I don't believe there's any way to communicate to Waze or anything that a preferred route.
We have had some success, limited success with that. Usually it's error correction though, or construction updates. We can't really exclude a route without something legal, like a park exclusion route or something like that. We have, for instance, when we turned Clark Street to one way, we were able to notify Waze to update them that that's now one way. And so we have some method of communication, but we can't just tell them, don't send people down this road.
Yeah, you have to get a little creative.
Yeah.
Well, that might be all the questions that we have from Facebook.
So with that, we'll wrap this meeting up. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for Caitlin for facilitating all of this. Caitlin, this will be posted on ACTV website.
I will download this video and I'll put it, we have a project page on the website for this, so we'll add it to the project page. And certainly if people have other questions, they can send us an email or send us a Facebook message, and we will continue to respond to them.
Yep. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.